What's wild in general, I would say, about all of kind of the chaos going on in the world of sports is that that as a result, sometimes I forget to give you my gambling picks. Yesterday, we did our 5th anniversary edition of the draft, of the Halloween candy draft. And I want to be kind to the listeners, so I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. You guys were absolute garbage. You were atrocious at drafting Halloween candy. And as a result, I forgot to give the college football gambling picks out on Thursday, as I usually do. And so we are moving the college football gambling picks to Friday. Now, I got to be honest with you. We are on absolute fire right now with the Outkick 6-pack of NFL picks. That is, every Friday, we give out the final segment of the show, 6 NFL gambling picks. And we are walking on air. We are on fire. 25-12 in the NFL gambling picks so far. That is an extraordinary performance. College football, not so good. We are 21-30. And how me doing live math on the radio is always dangerous and always ends in near disaster. But if I'm not mistaken, that means we're 46-42 overall, which is fairly mediocre. But the NFL's been killing it. College football has been an absolute and unmitigated disaster. But, and this is pretty significant, I do believe that we're going to start to turn the corner now. And so I believe we're going to be off and running here with a lot of success. And here are my 10 picks for you going into the weekend. By the way, I should mention this too. If you happen to be listening in person or on podcast in the state of Tennessee, online sports gambling is officially going to go legal in my home state on Sunday. So if you live in any of the 8 surrounding states that border Tennessee, you can also use Tennessee's online gambling market by just crossing the state line. So if you're listening to me in Kentucky and you live in southern Kentucky or northern Georgia or Alabama or North Carolina or Arkansas or Missouri or Mississippi or any of those states where you are right on the border with Tennessee, you can drive right across the state line, go get gas, have this app set up, make your bets, and they will then pay you back. Maybe you're going to be on the road for a wedding or you're going to a sporting event for some reason. All of those things become easily and readily bettable now on Sunday morning in the state of Tennessee. So you can do all that by going to FanDuel.com/Clay, FanDuel.com/Clay, and you will get $50 free just for signing up. FanDuel.com/Clay. And by the way, if you live in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Colorado, West Virginia, it's already legal in those states. So you can go sign up right now if you haven't already, FanDuel.com/Clay. All right, here we go with the gambling picks. Michigan State. I like Michigan State minus 24. I think Michigan is going to absolutely blow out Michigan State. We saw Michigan State against Rutgers not be able to have any success at all. I think that is going to continue. Another abject failure for Michigan State to begin the season. I'm sorry, Spartan fans. My blood bank guarantee, we're sticking in the Big Ten. I'm tapping the vein. You may even be able, can you hear me? That's me tapping the vein right there. Tapping the vein and telling you, go sell your blood for this game. I love Penn State at home against Ohio State. If you go back and look, first of all, as I said on Monday, props to Indiana and Michael Penix, I think is his name, Jr., stretching out and being able to get that touchdown. Props to Indiana for the win. Props to Tom Allen, their coach. A lot of reason for Hoosier happiness over that win, given all the close losses that had already occurred. But Penn State outgained Indiana by more yards than almost anybody in all of FBS on Saturday. I like to go look at the box score and look at total yardage. Penn State gave that game away. They were more dominant in terms of yardage gain than almost any team in the country. They got more yards on their opponents than Ohio State did against Nebraska, than Michigan did against Minnesota, than any of the teams that won in the Big Ten in week 1, okay, than Wisconsin did on Illinois. So the yardage differential suggests that Penn State should have won that game by 14 to 20 points. Instead, they lost by 1. Why do I bring that up? Well, because I think Penn State is going to play really well against Ohio State. I think they cover, and I think it's a one-score game in the fourth quarter. Penn State has typically played Ohio State pretty well. I think that continues. LSU on the road. It's my blood bank guarantee. Penn State is plus the points. LSU on the road, minus 2.5 or 3, depending on where you are, against Auburn. And I should tell you, I give these picks out on our VIP message board first. So if you sign up for the Outkick VIP, you go to the message board. So I'm using the numbers on Tuesday when I put these up. LSU on the road against Auburn. I like LSU. I think they got their mojo back. I don't believe in Auburn. They could easily be 1-4 or 0-5. I've got LSU minus the points against Auburn. How about Georgia? On the road against Kentucky. I think this is an incredibly easy call. I've got Georgia minus 14.5 at Kentucky. I also love the under 42.5. Kentucky can't score. They have zero offense. Unless Jarrett Garantano is throwing interceptions to them, there is no hope there. I love Georgia and the under in this game with Georgia on the road against Kentucky. Mississippi State at Alabama, I like the under 63.5. I think that Mississippi State's offense has really kind of regressed. The Alabama defense is stepping up. Mississippi State defense is decent. I think Alabama wins by a lot. They're nearly 31-point favorite, but I don't want to touch that. Instead, I want to play the under in that game. Penn State, as I said, was my blood bank guarantee. Just want to reinforce that again as I look at my list. Arkansas, plus 12.5 on the road. Arkansas, plus 12.5 on the road against Texas A&M. Arkansas has been the surprise story of the SEC so far. And Missouri, I've got plus 14. I got this earlier in the week. Missouri, I think, does a decent job with Connor Bazelak, their quarterback, of keeping it close. I've got Mizzou plus 14 against Florida. Now, I've got J-Mart sitting in with me here. You heard him in the last segment. He's got his own show starting, because he's a big shot now. He's got his own show starting at the top of the second hour here locally in Nashville, but he's sitting in with me this morning hanging out. J-Mart, do you care at all about gambling now? Now that in the state of Tennessee, sports gambling is going to be legal on Sunday, will you have any interest in it whatsoever?
I'll have interest in it, Clay. It's just not something I partake in personally. That's just a choice of mine. But just in terms of, I'm interested in listening to spreads and listening to people discuss why they make the decisions that they do. And obviously the fact that it is happening here in Tennessee, we have to take note of it, because it's going to become such a gigantic, it already is, but it's going to become such a gigantic part of what we do. It's going to be impossible to succeed in our line of work if we completely ignore it. It's going to be impossible. So, yeah, of course I'm going to be paying attention to it.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is, what's completely fascinating to me about sports gambling becoming legal is, I would argue, and I've said this for a while, there are 3 transformative things that have occurred in my life that have changed the way sports is consumed in this country. The first, and I'm old enough, and I think you're probably old enough too, J-Mart, to remember it. The first was, I can remember listening to games on radio. Like, my kids are going to find that to be crazy. And I don't mean listening to games on radio because you're in your car and you have to drive somewhere. I mean listening to games on radio because you don't have the ability to watch them on television. Mm-hmm. So for me, John Ward in the state of Tennessee, I remember getting in my car, my dad or mom's car, and having to listen to the radio, or getting the radio out and tuning it in to be able to listen to it. Same thing with games. I grew up, I used to be able to pick up, I think it was 700 WLW. Late at night, you'd be able to hear the Cincinnati Reds. I remember laying in bed as a young kid who was a Reds fan, being able to listen to them call those games while I was going to bed at night for late night games and whatnot. First is cable. Because nowadays, and you can put streaming / into that now, The idea that you wouldn't be able to watch every sporting event that you want, even if you have to pay for it, is crazy to anybody out there who's listening to us right now in their 20s or younger. Cable changed the availability of sports on a fundamentally different level. Suddenly, there were tons of sports to watch. The second one, transformative sports events in my life. The second one was fantasy. If you go look at ratings for the NFL, they started to skyrocket right as the internet became commonplace in homes, because if you're old like I am, you're 41 years old, I remember playing fantasy in college where some guy had to have a calculator and go through and look up all the different point totals and then send them out to everybody, and it was incredibly time-consuming. Suddenly, you've got Yahoo, which is the first one I remember, with free fantasy sports. Drafts are easy, and everybody's playing fantasy sports. And the ratings in the NFL have skyrocketed because it gave all of you out there a reason to care about every game. You had a player to root for. You had a player to root against. The rise of fantasy over the last 20 years has been massive for the NFL. And I think the third transformative sporting event of my life is going to be sports gambling. I really do. I think it's going to change everything. And much like fantasy sports and much like cable sports on television, it's just going to be the third, I would say, transformative leg of this universe. J Mart, you're about to have to hop out because you got to run and go do your own show.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you sitting in. Thanks
Sure.
for everything you do for the show. Having a good show yourself, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Indeed. Always fun, Clay.